Sorry to stop that, man. Hope that was okay.
Good.
Okay. All right. Well, hey, how's everybody? Good. Fantastic. All right, so we're starting this new series called Waitlisted, and what it's about is it's all about waiting for things that we hope are going to happen. So we're going to start with a question. The first question is, what is something that you hate waiting for? Anybody can go.
Christmas.
Christmas, yes. Go. Your birthday. Geez, it just left my brain. Hold on. Lily. Friday, yes. I'm telling you, we say we hate Mondays, Tuesdays, and Wednesdays. Don't get enough hate. Leon, go. Teenage years to be over. Yes, that was a very deep response. Oh, for them to begin? How old? Aren't you 14? 13? 12? 8? 6? 11. What? 12? All right, man. Well, let me tell you, the years start coming and they don't stop coming. Yeah, as Smash Mouth once said. Caleb, go ahead. Waiting for grades? You like to get grades immediately? Okay. Go ahead, Sean, though.
My paychecks.
Your paychecks, yes. Go. Saturdays, yes.
When you're in class for the day to end.
When you're in class for the day to end. Yeah, I used to, when I was in high school, I played tennis, and I really liked playing tennis. And my fourth block class, I went to a school, I don't know what Penn Manor NLS or CV or Solanco do. We did block scheduling in Penns Grove, so we had 4 1.5-hour classes, and that was our day. And I would sit in my fourth block class and look out at the tennis courts on days like today and just wish that school was over. But Cam, what's up? Come on. I will wait forever for this answer. Saturday, yes. All right, there we go. All right, so a couple ideas. How many of you guys waited in a long theme park line? You remember when this happened, when the Hagrid roller coaster? No, only me? That's okay. The Hagrid roller coaster opened, and there was an 8+ hour wait for it. And I guess people waited in that line. I don't really know. Somebody said Christmas. You know, you're waiting for Christmas to come. What's bad about that is Christmas really exposes how bad the rest of winter is, right? Because when it first starts to get cold, it's oh yeah, Christmas is coming. And then it's December 26th, and it's just cold for 4 more months. Or 3, I guess. Yeah, how about this? Just leaving that up for the sake of anxiety. Nothing worse. The only thing worse than this is when it goes for a long time, disappears, and then starts again, and you're what's happening? Are they proofreading? I don't understand. Yes, nothing worse than this. How many guys, you're waiting for this one, graduation? You excited for that? Yeah, graduation's cool. Well, I want to tell you guys about something called the Stanford Marshmallow Experiment. How many of you guys know what this is? A couple of you guys might have talked about it in psychology. Yeah. Okay, so what it is was they would give a kid a marshmallow and then tell them if you can wait 10 minutes or some pre-described amount of time, they would say, we'll give you 2 marshmallows, but if you can't wait, you only get that 1 marshmallow. Now, people get pretty upset about this because the first conclusions they made was they said, oh, the kids who have enough self-control to wait for the second marshmallow, those will be kids who have a bunch of self-control, and they'll make better decisions throughout their lives because they have good self-control, right? And that was what they thought going in. And what they ended up doing was they studied these kids as they got later into life, or at least that was the plan. But a lot of people debate the findings of this study, and the reason is because for many of the kids in the study, their decision not to wait for the second marshmallow wasn't, I should have made my text smaller here, but it wasn't motivated motivated by the fact that they didn't have self-control. It was motivated by the fact they didn't trust a strange adult to give them a second marshmallow. So in other words, what happens when you do scientific studies is you repeat the study over and over again. And what they found is as they repeated this study and as they talked to the subjects, they found that part of the reason that these kids weren't waiting for a second marshmallow was because they did not believe that this strange adult was going to be honest with them. And that's interesting, right? Because it really makes us think about when we talk about like waiting on a promise, right? When we talk about waiting for something to kind of, come through. And this can be hard, especially when we talk about we've all had people promise us stuff, right? Maybe somebody said, well, I'm going to pick you up and maybe your youth pastor promised that you would win a prize at a costume party of a pizza party, and it's been 4 years and you're wondering if it's ever going to happen. This is an example I just made up. I'm just a really creative speaker. So definitely not something that's happened, because I would never. But no, when you're waiting on a promise to come through, it can get frustrating to deal with that, and it can be especially frustrating when we talk about waiting, on God for something. Now, some of you guys are saying, I don't know if I've ever really waited on God to come through for something, but some of you guys, you can pretty easily relate to that. When I was, it was actually around, would it have been, no, it was, yeah. So it would have been it was November of 2015. Yeah, November of 2015, and I worked at this church in Jersey, and I loved it there. It was the church I had grown up in, but it was my home church, and there were some things about working there and living there that I kind of knew wouldn't be permanent, right? And I kind of had made the decision, you know what, I'm gonna start looking for a job, and as I kind of started on the process, I did a couple interviews, and none of them really went, terribly well for one reason or another. Either the church wasn't right for me or I wasn't right for the church, and I ended up interviewing here and starting to work here back in November of 2015. And I tell that story to say there was a time in my life, a pretty short period of time, where I kind of said to myself, you know what, I don't really know if I want to do this whole youth pastoring thing, if I can't kind of get out of this situation in the next 6 to 8 months or something. And the truth is that we find ourselves feeling like that sometimes. We just kind of feel beat down by life. We don't really know what's next. We feel frustrated. And look, like I said, some of you guys, you're not feeling that way right now. You're like, dude, I'm 12. I'm just looking forward to my teenage years, right? Like Leon said, you know what I mean? But some of you guys are like, yeah, I felt that way before. I've wanted something to work out, right? I've been trying out for the basketball team or the football team every year, and every year I pray that God would help me to make the team because it's important to me. And every year I'm the manager, right? You know what I mean? And that's just nothing wrong with being the manager, but that's not what you want, right? And the point is that when we're waiting on promises, it can feel difficult to trust God. We could feel like, can God really be trusted, or does God actually care about me? And what we're going to do is we're going to look at a character in the Bible. Now, characters in the Bible are not a lot like characters in books, right? So if you were to read, The Hunger Games, or if you were to read Harry Potter, or if you were to read, I don't know a lot of fiction series, right? If you were to Percy Jackson and the Olympians, right? If you were to read those types of books, the individual characters would have a lot of descriptors to them. You would know what their skin tone is. You would know kind of how tall they were. You would know about their physical features. You would more or less know what they looked like, right? Because how many guys have read a book and then seen a movie and said, oh, that's not how I pictured that person would look, right? Yeah, that's happened before. For those of us who are my age, I had no idea how to pronounce Hermione Granger. I was just mispronouncing it for 7 years before I heard it in audio form, and I was like, oh. Hermione was how I said it for 6 books, and then the first movie came out, and I refused to conform. Anyway, but those books came out when I was in middle school. So anyway, when we talk about characters in the Bible, they're not like that. In fact, we don't get a lot of descriptive features. We don't know what these people look like, and there's a reason for that. The reason for that is even though these were real people, even though we believe that these were actual people who lived the lives that were actually described, we only get minimal detail about them because the point of the story isn't to hear a story about, like we're going to look at Abraham. The point of the story is to kind of see ourselves in the story. Does that make sense? Yes. Okay, cool. So we're looking at Abraham, and his story starts in Genesis 12, 1 through 3. And so we're going to kind of look through the story of Abraham, and there is a lot of reading tonight. So just kind of hang in, and I'm going to try to get through it pretty quickly. But Genesis 12, 1 through 3, this is what it says. The Lord had said to Abram, so his name isn't Abraham yet, it's Abram. The Lord had said to Abram, go from your country, your people, and your, hold on, I'm like, my font got bigger or something because I did not have these problems earlier. Give me a second. Because this isn't going to work. All right, so we go here. All right, there we go. The Lord said to Abram, go from your country, your people, and your father's household to the land I will show you. I will make you into a great nation, and I will bless you. I will make your name great, and you will be a blessing. I'm having some serious font issues that I might not be able. Oh, wait, I got an idea. Give me like 3 seconds, maybe 4. Don't actually count to 3. I know you were getting ready to, Josh. There we go. It's going to get way smaller, but it'll work. All right, there we go. That works, right? You can still see it? No? Yes. Can everybody see it? Okay, good. No? All right. Hold on. Come on, where's my mouse? There we go. This is the least exciting thing that's ever happened. Edit. Let's go up to, Nick, what's a good text size? 125? I dig it. Is Nick still here? He's not, is he? That's really funny. All right, here we go. There we go. I think this will work. What is that sound? All right, here we go. All right. The Lord said to Abram, go from your country, your people, and your father's household to the land I will show you. I will make you into a great nation, and I will bless you. I will make your name great. I will bless those who bless you, and whoever curses you, I will curse. And all peoples on earth will be blessed through you. So basically, God gives this big promise for Abram, and he gives this big promise for the world, right? He basically is saying, Abram, you are important to the whole world, and I'm going to make it so that you have many, many descendants, and they bless the whole world. But time passes, and Abram would end up doubting what God had said, and we get that in Genesis 15, 1 through 6. This is what it says. After this, the word of the Lord came to Abram in a vision. Do not be afraid, Abram. I am your shield, your very great reward. But Abram said, Sovereign Lord, what can you give me since I remain childless? And the one who will inherit my estate is Eleazar of Damascus. And Abram said, you have given me no children, so a servant in my household will be my heir. Then the word of the Lord came to him, this man will not be your heir, but a son of your own flesh and blood will be your heir. He took him outside and said, look up at the sky and count the stars, if indeed you can count them. Then he said to him, so shall your offspring be. Abram believed the Lord, and it was credited to him as righteousness. So what's happening is Abram's getting older. God called him outside of his people, and we know that he actually did leave his people and go to the place that God would show him. But he still didn't have a child, so he's saying, God, you said I would have many descendants, but I don't have any descendants, so I don't really understand how this is going to work. And God says, don't worry, Abram, I've got it under control. But then Abram and Sarah would take things into their own hands. And this is what happens in Genesis 16, verse 1 through 6. Now Sarai, Abram's wife, had borne him no children, but she had an Egyptian slave named Hagar. So she said to Abram, the Lord has kept me from having children. Go sleep with my slave. Perhaps I can build a family through her. Now this sounds weird to us, and it should, but this was kind of common practice in the day. Like, this is the way things happened. So after Abram had been living in Canaan 10 years, Sarai's wife took her Egyptian slave Hagar and gave her to her husband to be his wife. He slept with Hagar and she conceived. When she knew she was pregnant, she began to despise her mistress. Then Sarai said to Abraham, you are responsible for the wrong I am suffering. I put my slave into your arms, and now that she knows she is pregnant, she despises me. May the Lord judge between you and me. And then it says, your slave is in your hands. Do whatever you think is best. Then Sarai mistreated Hagar, so she fled from her. Now, so this is kind of a messed up part of the story. So what's happened here is Abram and Sarai have said, you know what, we're going to take things under our own kind of control, and we're gonna take care of things on our own. And they do like a bunch of wrong stuff, right? They go outside of God's plan for their lives. And Sarah is treating her servant badly because they have gone outside of God's plan for her lives, and it creates all of this conflict. And then we get at the very end, despite all of this, we hear that God ends up keeping his promise to them. So just kind of giving you kind of the fast version of the end of the story. God ends up blessing. Now Hagar had a son named Ishmael, and we know that God blessed Ishmael and made him into a great nation also, because he said, basically God said, it's not right what Abram and Sarah did, and I'm going to bless Ishmael anyway. But Abraham and Sarah, because God changes their names, give birth to a son named Isaac. And Isaac would be kind of the son they had hoped for, and from Isaac, the entire nation of what we would call Israel comes from him. And so kind of the end of the story is this idea that God had a plan all along, but we might have to wait for it, right? Like, we might have to not see what God has in store for us until he intends for us to see what he has in store. And another place that this is seen is Proverbs 3, 5 through 7. Here's what that says. It says, trust in the Lord with all of your heart and lean not on your own understandings. In all of your ways submit to him, and he will make your paths straight. Do not be wise in your own eyes. Fear the Lord and shun evil. So the point we want you to walk away with tonight is that God has a plan, but you might not get to see it in your own time. And when I think about this, I always think about, how many of you guys know who Pastor Will is? He's the founding pastor of this church. Yeah, so it's pretty cool to kind of look, outside, and we're building this sanctuary for 550 people that will hold 550 people in one service. And you might not know this, but we're one of the larger churches in our denomination. And all of that's really neat. But what you don't know is that Pastor Will, back when he became the pastor of Lancaster Grace, which was the church that this church came out of, it was a time when you did what I do, you would become what's called this is going to sound very boring, but hang with me. You would become what's called an ordained itinerant elder. And what that meant was that you would go to conference every year, which national conference of the EC Church, and they would tell you where you're going to work starting on July 1st, right? So conference is in May, and they would be like, they would say, okay, so they would say Lancaster Grace, and then they would say someone's name, and you would become the pastor of that church the following July. Now, most of the time, people stayed where they were, but when there was a vacancy due to death or due to somebody no longer being a pastor or something, they would move you. So Will didn't live in this area. He wasn't even listening when they were doing the Eastern churches, because he didn't think they were going to ask him to move. And they said, Lancaster Grace, Will Martin. And he was like, okay. guess I'm moving to Lancaster. And he moved to Lancaster in the city, and he was the pastor at Lancaster Grace, and things were kind of rough there, right? Like they kind of had some problems in the church, and the church ended up deciding to plant a church in kind of the suburbs of Lancaster, and planted Grace Community Church. Now, Will had pastored his whole life, right? Like he wasn't an old man, but he's in his 70s or 80s, I'm not sure, and I'm not going to guess, but he's an older man now, and what I always think is how cool it is that the last church he pastored, he got to kind of watch it become this really big and really cool church that's like provided something to a lot of people. Now, if you'd have talked to Will when he was being asked to move to Lancaster when he didn't expect that, or when he was having problems at Lancaster Grace that weren't going too well, he would have said like, yeah, things are pretty bad right now. But he is somebody who stayed where he was because God had a plan for his life, and he got to experience, being the pastor here and getting to build the building we're sitting in and that type of stuff. So what I hope you get from this, and I know, guys, this wasn't like your typical exciting, cool message or whatever, but what I hope you get from this is that no matter like kind of where your story takes you, God has a plan and a purpose for your life. Like no part of your story is accidental, even though it might feel painful, even though it might feel difficult. God sees you, God cares about you, and God has a plan for your life. And even if we have to wait for what God's plan is, like he's still working for us, and he is still with us and for us. So we're going to invite the worship team back up, and we're going to have them play, I think, one more song. Is Matt here? Yeah. Oh, okay. I'm nervous. What's up, Ben? It's 7:20, man. We're usually done about now. I mean, usually. Did it feel fast? Yeah. Oh. Usually I'm done about now, and then we go to 7:45, and then we do, I'm trying to leave small group time, All right, is Matt coming? What? Okay.